Before we begin, I would just like to say, please stay till the end, because I made something a little special for this game, and, well, the last game as well. Thanks, and enjoy! Back in 2011, I remember when Fall of Cybertron's first trailer released. My dad called me to the computer as we watched Optimus carry a wounded Bumblebee through a battlefield. My eyes were glued to the screen, seeing all of the mayhem and melancholy, and my jaw was officially on the floor when I saw everyone's favorite robot dinosaur, Grimlock. And from that moment on, we both knew that this game was going to be amazing. And we were right. This is the gold standard for a Transformers game. Honestly, this is the perfect Transformers game. Everything about it is perfect, and I've played it dozens of times to the point where I know what to do in each level without the game telling me. It's one of the games that I'm working on to 100%, and I can actually do it now thanks to a wonderful fan initiative that restarted the multiplayer servers. Links in the description below, by the way. I absolutely love this game, and today I finally get to talk about it. Hell, this is one of the first videos I wanted to make since I started my channel. So, I'm done with the intro, I'm shutting up, and let's get into it. The war is over. It's now time to witness the fall of Cybertron. Like any great sequel, the gameplay is the same framework as the first games, just refined and added to in order to make it better. For the game's core gameplay loop, it's the same, but the mechanics are a little bit different in terms of you just have a few more options in your toolbox. For one, you have only one ability, and there aren't as many as there was in the first game. The left trigger or bumper is now dash for everyone, acting the same as the last game's dash ability with snazzy new animations, and it feels more of like a dodge sometimes. The ability to sprint when held down is also a new thing, whenever you hold down the dash button. Honestly, I love this way more than the ability system in the first game. Having two abilities made me a little overwhelmed when I was picking my character to play as in the campaign, and I appreciate this change. Another thing is the removal of grenades and the introduction of these items that you can buy/pick up. These are more useful than the grenades, and even some of the abilities are repurposed into the gear, like the clutch drone. Overall, I use them more than the grenades in the last game, and I definitely don't miss them. I really prefer these. Changes here help balance this fantastic game. Another thing they added is the ability to swap hands for better aim when behind cover, and this is super useful. I love it as an addition, and I also just think it looks cool to see them swap firing hands. The gameplay isn't much different besides these changes, and honestly, it's just more fine-tuned and easier to access. The weapons feel nice again as well. The art design for them changed, and for the better. They put a more sci-fi look to them, and it pays off very well. My baby, the Scatter Blaster, is back, and more useful than ever with some new additions. My favorites of the new guns is the Path Blaster and the Electro Bolter. The Path Blaster is a heavy-hitting rifle that acts a lot like the Magnum in the Halo games. It also feels good to shoot, and the Electro Bolter, I'll give you two guesses why I love it. Overall, the weapons feel great, and there's even more upgrades you can put on them, meaning they can get even better, a swell upgrade from the first game. The art design changed over the course of this game's development. There was even some character changes, like Optimus Prime and Megatron. The robots are shinier, and while I don't have a problem with that per se, I do have a problem with the PS3 having loading trouble. The textures, since they're really shiny, and there's a lot of them on screen, it just has a lot of trouble catching up. Actually, the PS3 has a lot of trouble catching up with this game in general. It can get really annoying in cinematic moments, like the final levels, Jetfire moment in particular. In fact, I remember the 360 also having this problem. There was this one morning I was watching my dad play as a kid, and he had to restart the console because it got stuck at the loading screen. So, I will say, it's a problem on console. PC, I don't know about, though. You'd have to get back to me on that. But getting back to talking about the game and the sound design, it knocks it out of the park once again. I love every moment of the mechanical gibberish that plays every single time Cliffjumper or Bumblebee transforms. Like the mechanics of the game, they did the same thing and took what worked in the last game and refined it, adding new things and sounds to make it even more special. I could listen to the sounds all day. Speaking of listening, once again, the soundtrack, man. The soundtrack, sacrifice, loss, hope, anger, these are all feelings I get whenever I listen to the soundtrack. And that opening theme, man, oh my god. I listen to this soundtrack like it's actual music. It's on par with the Halo soundtrack in my opinion. This game feels like a desperate fight, and I love it. But for now, it's time for the big thing, the story. And when I say it, I mean it. I think this is the greatest Transformers story that could be told on Cybertron, and it's the best Transformers story yet. So I'm done wasting time. Let's get into this. We begin with the Ark leaving Cybertron as Optimus speaks to Bumblebee about how hard this action is. The Ark is then attacked by Nemesis, Megatron's new ship. I wonder where he got it from. You are then thrust into the big metal boots of Bumblebee as Ratchet cleverly explains why he sadly isn't talking.
You with us, Optimus. He's coming around. Thank the Maker.
He's been through worse. Voice chip is still crushed. Nothing new there.
Can we just talk about how stupid of a thing that is? I hate whoever introduced that. That is such a dumb choice. Bumblebee was the kid character who talked a lot and was upbeat. And now he's just quiet. And yeah, he can still be upbeat, like, for instance, the Transformers Prime show. That's a good representation of that. But it still kind of sucks that we don't get to hear him talk. Honestly, I would have preferred if you just would have kept the old voice actor from War for Cybertron. He did an amazing job. But besides that, Decepticons board the Ark, but are no match for the power of the player. A hologram of Megatron's face then pops up as he threatens to tear the ship apart piece by piece. Optimus runs off to handle that, while Bumblebee is chosen to stay there and guard the bridge. That of course doesn't last long though, because this is a game, and the player needs to do something. So, Ratchet needs you to repair some systems that just went down. Bumblebee grabs a fuse, places it, and then rides a lift up to help his fellow Autobots. Once that's dealt with, we're notified that Optimus needs our help. So, we transform and roll out. On the way, we see absolute carnage that's been ensuing on the Ark. And if War for Cybertron showed war well, this game shows it perfectly. Neither side seems to have a foothold in the situation. Hell, we got giant-ass Decepticons causing destruction above, the ship is falling apart, and you really do feel like you're in a desperate war of survival. But moving on, we make it to Optimus and oh shit!
This ought to do the job. Even if you destroy me, Megatron, others will rise to defeat your tyranny. Then I'll just have to destroy you all! Bumblebee!
Holy shit, this is gonna be a wild ride, isn't it? We flash back to 6 Earth days before the Ark sets off as the city is being shut down to reserve Energon for them. But the Decepticons have other plans as they start firing on the Ark to destroy it. Optimus Prime then sets off to save the Ark and their chance-off planet. This level, I think, is the perfect representation of the war on Cybertron. You fight with warpaths destroying tanks and wave after wave of Decepticons. You really get to see, like I've said 2 times before, desperation of this war. Honestly, these might be some of my favorite levels in any game. You get told by Perceptor that there's a neutron gun nearby that you can use to defend the Ark. Tanks are beating down on it and dropships are everywhere, and only Optimus can stop them. Only you can. You do your best, but eventually the gun stops firing.
It isn't what?
Mysteriously, the area shifts, almost leading you somewhere. Something, or someone, is calling you. Optimus orders them to help the Autobot cause, and Metroplex heeds the call of the last Prime.
Metroplex heeds the call of the last Prime. Optimus, what just happened?
Our objective next is clear. We have to destroy the Decepticon warp cannons firing on the Ark. The first and the second one are easy enough, but the third one fires at our walking city before he can even destroy it. Optimus then goes in to destroy it himself, but gets ambushed by Starscream, Brawl, and Onslaught. Prime is then taken before Megatron as he demeans and blames him for Cybertron's state.
All of this is your doing!
Optimus!
Megatron, stop! I'll stop when all of you are dead!
No!
This is needless. All we want is to leave. Charge up the warp cannon! Wipe their precious Ark off the face of Cybertron! Yes, sir! No one leaves without my permission. I wasn't asking.
Eventually, though, Megatron gets what's coming to him, as Metroplex crushes him to scrap metal. Sadly though, the Energon that was saved up was burnt through when defending the Ark. But there's hope. Grimlock may know where to find some more, but however, he hasn't been seen since he apparently abandoned his post. So we turn to Cliffjumper and Jazz, who are tracking his last known location. And I will say, these are probably the worst levels in the game, not because they're bad, they're still damn good levels, but compared to the perfect levels that were the last 3, I can see why some people think that there are pacing issues. However, I don't really see it as being a bad thing. As much as people like to point it out, yes, it does slow down a bit, but you gotta have the story give it time to breathe and set up later. Without these 2 levels, some of the last 2 levels would not be as good as they were. However, the opening to this level is great, with Cliff and Jazz fist bumping before jumping out of the ship into the Sea of Rust. We definitely find remains of Grimlock and his team, but other than that, we only find Decepticon forces guarding something of shockwaves. Eventually, a beautiful scene plays out, whereas we find a holographic display of his newest experiment.
Primus, would you look at that? Jazz, I've stumbled into some kind of ancient map room of the universe.
Does the map point to something big and ugly named Grimlock?
No. Jazz, you should see this place. It's beautiful.
Well, that's nice. Write a poem about it and move on.
You suppose the ancients visited all these places? Jazz? Signal cut out again.
God, that was so pretty! Eventually, we find a giant pit covered up with a lid? I don't really know what it is, but Jazz decides we should blow it up, and I agree with him. Cliff defends the bomb as we finally blow it sky high. The next level, we find ourselves playing as Jazz as he jumps into the pit. This level isn't anything special. We get to use the grapple hook and fight Insecticons. I love the AI for them too. It really gives you the feel of it's a hive mind. They swarm you all together and sometimes even overwhelm you to where you can't even do anything. It can be a bit frustrating, but just don't let yourself get too close to them and you should be fine. The level doesn't have really much plot. You do find one of Grimlock's team members in stasis and figure out they were swarmed by the Insecticons, but that's it. Oh yeah, and the giant reservoir of Energon. Once you fight off even more bugs and escape the meltdown, you notify Optimus of the lake, and they devise a plan to use a massive Energon transport to escort the Energon. Because, duh. This concludes the quote-unquote Autobot side of the story. If you've noticed, this game is a more linear story, not allowing you to play each side by itself. You have to play it as a unified story, and honestly, I don't really mind it. It gives us an amazing story like this one, so I don't mind it at all. Sacrifices for quality is different than sacrifices for budget cuts and laziness. But continuing on to the Decepticon portion of this campaign, the Decepticons get wind of the Autobot plan, and as the transport heads back with a load of Energon, Starscream tasks the Combaticons with intercepting it and leading it to an ambush. Vortex and Blastoff are sent to clear a shortcut so Brawl can take a dropship ahead and destroy a bridge. They fly through an ancient Autobot city, and the pair run into Autobots, of course. Blastoff ends up racing ahead, leaving us to fight them, because, we're the player. They eventually reach the bridge, though, but whenever Brawl shells it, they find it shielded. Of course, Vortex deactivates the shielding, allowing Brawl to take out the side supports. But the central support is a little trickier, and Brawl has to blow a hole in it so Vortex can get in it and take out the shield controls. After fighting more Autobots, of course, Vortex uses a jetpack on the center support and races out as the bridge collapses. Starscream springs his ambush on the transport, but the transport defenses blast them, because Starscream's kind of stupid. Onslaught immediately sends Swindle under the transport to try and stop it. Swindle takes out the rear end, wheels, and heads for the front, and takes those out as well. However, just as victory might be certain, transport wheels convert into jets as the transport takes off into the air. Can't be that simple, can it? We grapple on board and enter one of the most memorable levels in this game. Swindle is then sent in to get rid of the AA guns on the ship, and the first one goes down super easy, barely an inconvenience. But the second one's access is disabled, so the Combaticons get a little creative. You jump on a dropship and man the turret on the top and brute force its destruction. Afterwards, all hell breaks loose.
We need to take control of this ship. Combaticons, combine into Bruticus.
Bruticus is online and smashes his way through the carrier. And oh my god, this game has such great power trips. You absolutely just squish all opposition. It's absolute madness. Your controls completely change as well. Circle is now your melee button, and the left bumper is your shield, and right bumper is your flamethrower. Your ability is then replaced with a massive quake that you can cause by hitting the ground. Bruticus is also much slower and truly feels like a giant compared to already giant robots to our scale, but Bruticus wipes the floor with everyone on the carrier and makes his way to the door to the control room and busts it open. The Combaticons decombine back into themselves and do a controlled landing of the carrier. Starscream is very displeased, and even though the Combaticons saved more energon than they would have gotten if they did in fact retreat, but Starscream doesn't care, and he arrests them. Why did anyone let him lead? I'm serious. Why? Who thought it was a good idea? Who thought I just want to talk. I just want to talk to him. It's safe to say Starscream's reign is not a very popular one, and one con in particular has a plan to put an end to it. And that con is my boy Soundwave! Yes! Oh man, a mission dedicated to him. Hell yeah. I've been waiting for this, and oh, he's just here to resurrect Megatron. Oh well, he got some screen time, so I guess that's that. But, in all seriousness, Megatron is back and viciously evil as ever. And this level is just awesome. The entire time, you're absolutely destroying this traitorous Decepticon, showing why Megatron is the true ruler of the Decepticon faction. We even get a 1980s movie reference, which is just,
Megatron! Who dares to disrupt my coronation?
Coronation, Starscream. This is bad comedy.
You send that rat Starscream flying away as the Decepticons bend the knee. All hail Megatron. Megatron meets with Shockwave, who has deciphered the ancient technology to open wormholes and located a suitable energy-rich planet for them to plunder. Megatron boards a dropship and heads for the crater where Trypticon crashed, with the intention of recovering the giant Decepticon's power core. Unfortunately for the Autobots, his dropship is shut down, which means he's forced to jump on the ground, meaning he has to kill and maim his way to Trypticon. And while this level doesn't have much plot throughout it, it's a huge power trip, especially on easier difficulties, because you can see how fucking scared everyone is of Megatron, and honestly, I would be too. We even get a very accurate description of him.
What do you see? I have no idea. What does it look like? Pain, sorrow, and eternal stasis. Not necessarily in that order.
You make it to Trypticon, and after one more desperate attempt to stop you from the Autobots, we see where they got the Nemesis in this continuity. And honestly, it's kind of awful. Megatron essentially forces Trypticon to transform into his warship form. But because of his damaged state, he could never turn back into the giant Mechagodzilla. And Megatron knows this. That's just... wow. That's awful. But anyway, that's where this level ends, and we are on the final missions for the story. We turn to a Decepticon soldier as him and his fellow soldiers head down to the secure data logs that someone's trying to hack into. They are then killed by Starscream, who is behind the hacking, because of course he is. Starscream then goes after Shockwave's security towers and to open his maintenance shafts. When inside, Starscream sees Shockwave's newest experiment. God, that is so hard to say. Starscream sees Shockwave's newest experiment. Woo, wow, I'm surprised I got through that. A huge Autobot who you may know. His name is Grimlock. Starscream foolishly allows Grimlock to escape by gloating within arm's reach of him. Good God, how have you survived this long? Anyways, we play as Grimlock now, who is pissed and in search of his team. Savage brutality is Grimlock's go-to strategy, and it is wonderful. The rage is amazingly conveyed with his moveset and executions, a new mechanic that is an instant kill on lower class enemies and rewards you with health. The animations are wonderfully gruesome for Transformers. This level actually reminds me of Weapon X, better known as Wolverine. Huh, that gives me an idea. Eventually, you find Swoop and free him. You see him turn into a pterodactyl, however, Grimlock can't change form. Yet. In fact, a detail I really like is that they don't make him a dumb brute. He's actually a really tortured character, as he was ripped apart and rebuilt to Shockwave's specifications. Hell, he even says that he's shocked Grimlock can even talk. So he's not dumb or stupid, he's quite literally traumatized and reprogrammed. I'm in love with how this character feels real and relatable. I'm sure we can all remember a time that someone did something to you so horrible and painful that you were broken and only felt anger towards that person and act. I know I have. Anyway, we continue on to look for Slug, who we sadly don't actually find, but we do find what's left of his prison, so it's safe to say, guy's alright. You drop down into the pit and follow the trail coming up on the Insecticons once more, and even the Insecticon Commander Kickback, who's volunteered to, help Grimlock with unlocking his alt form. And he does so by pissing him off until the rage is too much, because of course he does. Hell yes. You finally get to play as Grimlock in his Dino mode, and I love this so much. It's so good. After slaughtering the Insecticons, Kickback goes to leave as we get another movie reference.
Excuse me.
Slug is thankfully alive and helps Grimlock up as you continue on looking for your final team member, Snarl, who's being held captive by Sharpshot. We of course mop the floor with everyone and murder Sharpshot in pretty horrible fashion. We then patch up Snarl in an observation tower as Slug contacts Optimus Prime after seeing the space bridge, and much to Grimlock's dismay.
You're alive. We feared the worst. Are you all right? Shockwave is opening a space bridge to another world, rich with energy. We cannot allow Megatron to plunder another world the way he has Cybertron. For once, we agree. Return to base. We will face this together. You're weak, Optimus. You run when you should fight. I'm taking the space bridge down.
Eventually, though, the space bridge becomes unstable, and that causes Grimlock to get sucked out of the tower and saved at just the last second by Swoop, who states that Dinobots gotta stick together. Which is really funny, actually, because Swoop technically isn't a Dinobot. By all means, by the Transformer classification, he is definitely a Dinobot, and he's definitely part of the team. But a pterodactyl isn't actually a dinosaur. It's a distant cousin of them, sure, but they're technically classified as flying reptiles. But in all seriousness, I do love that moment, and Swoop was right. Their whole name was really stupid. You make it to the space bridge with the help of Swoop and fight your way to Shockwaves, who immediately seizes him with energy chains. But Grimlock has broken his programming. You transform and eats his arm? I don't really know how that works, but the space bridge starts to have a meltdown. Grimlock races to the edge, but is sadly too late. His fate is laid unknown, until the Beast Hunter comics at least. Switching back to the Autobots, the space bridge is destabilizing, meaning that it's go time right now. But they don't have enough energon until Metroplex makes a sacrifice, giving the Ark his entire reserve, which is actually a really well done and sad scene.
one.
But with that, the Autobot sets off into the stars. The final level of this game is fucking amazing. We begin with Megatron looking at the Autobot's arc in disgust as he sends Soundwave to lead the first wave of assault. Hell yes, I can play as Soundwave and use his mini-cons? This is my dream. Soundwave hops on a cable and rides it to the Ark. Once inside, he sends Laserbeak to open a door to the AA guns on the Ark, gunning down some Autobots before entering the room with the AA guns. It's not very difficult or interesting gameplay-wise, but hey, I got to play Soundwave in the greatest Transformers experience to date with his minicons. That's awesome. It's a short segment, but it's fine. I love it. And it's fine for one reason. Because once Soundwave disables the guns, we turn to Jetfire, who races out, after that loading bit I talked about a little bit earlier, and finds himself in the middle of a dogfight. You have one goal, and that's to shoot the tow cables revealing the connection link and destroy it. It's a very, very short section of the level, and it has some interesting zero-G environments, but I never use them because I know where the links are because I played this game way too much. But after dealing with the cables, Bruticus flies by, causing more destruction in his wake, which is a fun callback to the first level. Because if you remember, you get it. You make your way to vital parts of the ship, crushing the Autobots to beneath your feet. And there's a line here that I really like and I always quote when playing this section. The game can be pretty funny at times, just like the Decepticon campaign of the first game. I really didn't touch on that last time. I should have. It gets really funny sometimes.
Hit him with something that will slow him down! Starship! Just keep firing! The bigger they are, the harder they hit!
You make it to your target and crush it before swapping to Jazz, who's en route to Bruticus, and helps his Autobot soldiers beat him. This fight's awesome, and one of the only real boss fights in the game. The first phase is you doing damage to him before latching onto him with Jazz's grapple hook and blasting his faceplate. This of course only pisses him off, which sets him up on his second phase. You can no longer shoot him or really get close to him now because his shield is up, meaning that he will slice you to ribbons. Now you rely on Jetfire to drop an EMP mine to lure Bruticus on, then you use your grapple to trip him up. We then mark him for an airstrike. You do this a couple times before he gets up, taking a missile to the face, flying back to Cybertron. Finally, we get back to the scene that opened up the game. As Bumblebee is shot, we also get some badass lines from Optimus.
After eons of conflict, I finally see the truth of your words, Megatron. And what might that be, Optimus? This universe, no matter how vast, will never be big enough for you and I to coexist.
Thus begins the final battle, a one-on-one sword fight between Megatron and Optimus Prime. One shall stand, one shall fall. You get to pick your character here. Right triggers for the correct choice and left triggers for the wrong choice. But in all seriousness, either choice is valid, and it very slightly changes the ending. I chose Optimus for my playthrough, and enough stalling, this fight is awesome. Beating the shit out of Megatron after killing so many of your friends and even your planet feels good. The controls here are the same as Grimlock's, but Triangle is now a heavy attack instead of the execution. The dialogue here is also nothing but stellar. Optimus even bashes Megatron into the ground multiple times, and it's just, oh my god, I love this so much. But it all comes down to this. Every loss, every tragedy, every bit of energon wasted in this war. What started as a fight for freedom turned into a one-sided massacre, and all of it ends with Optimus, Megatron, and the plunging of the sword.
The vortex is tearing the ship apart! No!
This game is important, and no one seems to know about it. Even some TF fans don't even know about it, and that hurts. I love this game with all of my heart. Hell, one of the first videos I wanted to make was this one right here, just like what I said in the intro. This is what my channel has been building up to, and I put my all into it. Thank you all so much for watching, and leaving these sweet comments. Honestly, it's not a lot. I barely get any views compared to the big ones, big YouTubers and stuff like that, but to every single person who watched this video and who's watched my other videos, thank you. You inspire me to be creative and do these types of things. And I want to say thank you to High Moon for showing us that these characters are more than meets the eye. I've been sarcastic, and I'll catch you all next time. But before you click off, I want to leave you with something that I think Optimus Prime says best.
Till all are one.
You got the touch. You got the power. You got the touch. You got the power. You're at your best when the road gets rough. You've been put to the test, but it's never enough. Yeah! You got the touch.
Whatever lies beyond that portal is our best and last hope, my friend.
You got the touch. You got the power.